Well, everyone, welcome back. Josh Bitar and Alex Goldwyn from the stands, and today we're very luckily joined by Niko Pajarillo, the man from Fox Sports and Main Event. Niko, thank you very much, man, for giving us some time this afternoon. How are things with you?
Very, very well. Thanks for having me, Josh. Alex, and great pronunciation, by the way. I appreciate that.
Nah, no worries, man. I've seen you a bit on the TV, and I've definitely listened to your name a few times, so I had it down pat. But Niko, first thing I want to sort of touch on. Obviously, we're fresh off UFC 291 yesterday, and it was a very, very good card. I thought it was an amazing, amazing fights on that card. I sort of wanted to get your thoughts on what you thought. Obviously, Justin Gaethje with the highlight head kick there in the second round, and Pereira picking up a split decision win, which only advances him further towards the light heavyweight title, and then obviously Australia's Jake Matthews is back in the win column again. So, what were your thoughts on the card overall, and what was a fight that really stood out for you?
Well, I think it was a massive day of sport yesterday. I think one of the best days of the year sports wise.
Yeah.
I mean, how good is it for Aussie fans? We're able to wake up, watch our boy Jake Matthews back in action, getting the win. First time I've ever seen someone TKO and then submit someone in the same fight.
Yeah.
But, after that, we're sort of going back and forth with the Terence Crawford fight that was happening at the same time. Fight of the decade, many were saying. Well, certainly the performance of the decade, I thought, from Terence Crawford, and then a bit of rugby league after that, and some Formula One to finish in the evening as well.
Yeah.
I also watched my Filipino side gracefully bow out of the World Cup yesterday. So it was a great day of sport, but the UFC card I thought was one of the best cards of the year. Sneakily, it was the BMF title was absolutely outstanding. And I just think with fights like that, particularly at 155, like a lot's been made of how deep bantamweight is, how a terrific division. Featherweight has become. I know Volk's sort of taken out all the top contenders there, but 155, in my opinion, is still very much the glamour division of the UFC. Yeah. Like, when you get those big fights like that, I mean, we saw with Dustin Poirier taking on Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje taking on Michael Chandler. Like, just the top of lightweight is just so unpredictable and so exciting, and it's almost a guaranteed great fight anytime that you put on a fight in that weight class. So it was no surprise to me how surprising the result was. Seeing that head kick from Justin Gaethje was absolutely remarkable. Seeing Poatan do very well, I thought, striking-wise against Jan Blachowicz. I initially, that third round was very, very close. I thought that they might have scored that takedown for Jan, but, I mean, if that's the way that they're going to judge it, so be it. I was happy with that result. I certainly don't think it was a robbery. Yeah. And I think with Poatan saying in the post-fight interview with Joe Rogan that he still got some unfinished business, I wonder what he meant by that. I wonder if he means that there's still some business to finish off at middleweight, or indeed he welcomes his old rival to 205 pounds someday down the line. But it was just a tremendous card, and I thought one of the best of the year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, one thing that we're noticing, in the general entertainment industry is sort of, this, it's the decline of cinema, the decline of stock standard TV, tuning into, your channels in the afternoon, watching all your sports, as you say. And people seem to be sort of shifting towards, different content, whether that's, YouTube, Netflix, Stan, UFC Fight Pass, whatever it is. So the question I had for you is that, considering that, how we as people, consume content is changing, can you ever see the pay-per-view model for combat sports, radically changing in the near future? And if so, have you got any thoughts on what these changes could look like?
Well, Alex, I think certainly with regard to the sporting media landscape, certainly in this country, I thought like something needed to kind of change. Whether maybe like 5-6 years ago, I think it's sort of everyone was sort of moving towards a more Netflix model. Everyone was starting to watch Netflix, and all these streaming services started popping up. And sports was very much something that you just watch on TV. But I think with the uprise or with the introduction of KO, and something like that, it was something that we'd never seen before, right? It was just basically Netflix, but for sport, where you could watch anything like that. As a consumer, you could choose whatever you like, and you could tailor your preferences and your content to however you liked it. So it was very much a game changer in that regard. And you're seeing all these other streaming services kind of pop up now, and I guess KO was almost a trendsetter in that sense, in that it really brought everything that Foxtel had to offer to the fore. And I thought that was it was something that was so impressive and took us all by surprise, and really took, I think, Australia by storm. And you look how strong KO has become. So I certainly think that the way that we consume sports content and sports media will change. I don't know if the pay-per-view model is over and done with. Certainly, I mean, in terms of how I guess events are put on and stuff. I mean, it's certainly not cheap. You look at an event like yesterday, and what the UFC has been able to put forward, and also like, you know, big boxing promoters being able to put on these great shows. I think that, you know, from everything from the talent that they're able to offer to the cameras that are top of the line to the spec that they're able to introduce regarding their production quality. Not only that, but, you know, you look at the way that their graphics pack is composed, and anything down to audio, it all costs a lot of money. So I don't know if pay-per-view is on its way out, but I think the way that we access pay-per-view, and that you can access it via your phone rather than, you know, a remote control on your TV, a laptop, I think that's certainly the way of the future. And we're seeing that take place now with what KO has to offer, and with all these streaming services that are now popping up.
Yeah, definitely. Niko, look, man, we're officially 6 weeks out now from UFC 293, and for the first time in quite some memory, we actually don't have a UFC main event, you know, with such short time away from the actual card itself. And, you know, at the time of recording this, for everyone that's you know, going to tune in, it is Monday the 31st, and so unless something comes out before this video gets released, then, you know, obviously we'll be talking about that then. But, you know, we're officially 6 weeks out, man. We still don't have a main event, and obviously the rumored main event after fell out was Sean Strickland, and, you know, there's been a bit of back and forth I've seen on Twitter with, you know, Sean saying that, you know, the UFC didn't want it and that sort of stuff. So, in your mind, when do you think we can expect an announcement on the main event of that card?
Well, I think first and foremost, it speaks to, firstly, the pulling power and the strength of the UFC, in that they can announce a card without a main event, and the event sells out within 2 hours. It's absolutely remarkable. I don't know any other combat sports promotion in the world that's able to do that. So kudos to the UFC, no pun intended, with how they were able to sell out that arena. And I think Eddie Hearn said it once. It's like, you know, they are very much the trendsetters in how they're able to do stuff like that. They're able to sell out arenas just by their name, just with the name the UFC. So that's impressive. In terms of the main event for 293, I'm hearing a lot of things about it. They were saying, the guys were saying on our show the other day that Strickland and Adesanya is the one that's expected to be announced. As for when that might be announced, I'm not too sure. But and you never know with these sort of things. Like if anyone can pull off an almighty surprise, a pleasant surprise, it's certainly the UFC. Like, who knows? They might in 2 weeks announce like a Glover Teixeira versus, you know, whoever it might have been. Who was the last? They actually announced Jamal Hill in January, didn't they? Jamal Hill, Glover Teixeira. So it might be something like that, right? It might be like a surprise fight that we weren't expecting that turns out to be an almighty card. So I don't know when that fight will announce, or if that fight's going to be the one that's announced, but I guarantee you, whatever the UFC announces will be a hell of a card.
Yeah, definitely. So, Nick, you know, linking back a little bit to, you know, my first question, which was, you know, how we consume product is changing. You touched on it a little bit earlier, which is how something had to change. You know, that's, you know, the arrival of things like KO. But how do you think the current combat sports media of today differs from the combat sports media of, you know, 6, 7, 10 years ago? You know, what are the sort of the major points of difference, do you think?
Well, I certainly think it has changed. And I think it's more of a change, Alex, in terms of like not only the way sports media has changed, but I think it's also very much symbolic of the way the media in general has changed, right? So if you look at like press conferences from 10, 15 years ago, it was very much, not so much gatekeepers, but members of traditional media, whether that be newspapers, whether that be TV, radio, for instance. Right now, social media has very much given power back to the people, and power, I guess, not only in terms of being able to become media, but being able to I guess, start your own. Like you can make your own website these days, but not only can you do that, but you're also empowered, and you can also market and promote yourself via social media in ways that we would never have thought 10, 15 years ago. Like, it's never been easier to become media now, if that makes sense, right? Like, I mean, you guys would know, you guys have started this incredible project from the ground up, and then you guys have created an incredible product. And I think what that speaks to, I guess, how positive, like, the rise of social media can affect sports media as well, if that makes sense. So, but with that comes its pitfalls, right? Because at times you can get people who aren't, I guess, members of staff, or who haven't done media training, or who aren't required to abide by a code of conduct. So, you get these randoms that you've never seen at these press conferences, and they say some truly daft things, and they can be a bit disrespectful, I find. And I'm not sure, like, if that's really the right way to go. I think it's great that we're able to open and broaden our search in terms of finding media members and being able to cover our sport. But I think if you are going to be a member of media at these press conferences, you need to conduct yourself with respect, not only for the fighters, but also some self-respect as well, right? And it's not just because they are athletes and they put their bodies through, these unspeakable things for our own entertainment, but just because they're people as well, they're human beings. And I don't know where I was when manners went out the window for the sake of a viral TikTok. So I think in that sense, media and sports media has greatly changed, and there's positives and negatives with that.
Definitely. Niko, that's actually a good little segue into sort of my next sort of question for you is, what originally interested you in pursuing a career in sports media and journalism? I know you studied at the University of New South Wales and, Bachelor of Media, Communications and Journalism. So for you, what, leaving high school and entering university, what was the motivation, the pursuit? Why did you go down this route, and what sort of, what made you excited to go down this route and pursue a career in this?
Well, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys. Like, sport to me was always kind of a means of escapism, right? It was always kind of like, a way to distract yourself from all the, all the crap that was going on in your life, whether that be the stresses of, doing your HSC or, depressive cycles of thought where you're thinking, I don't know what's going to become of me in my adulthood. But sport was always kind of that escape for me, and I always, I was passionate about so many things, and sport was certainly one of them. And it was something that, I was always kind of an outspoken guy. I wasn't brash by any means, but I thought that it was something that might work for me in the future. But I mean, being a kid from Mount Druitt and having gone to school in Parramatta, it just I didn't really see an obvious path for me. So it was something that I sort of parked in the back of my mind. And there was kind of this moment where I was at uni. I was studying something else, and I was like, you might as well just give it a go. If you fail, you fail. Like, I mean, if people laugh, they laugh. If people, want to, put you down, they'll put you down. But at least you had a go, right? At the end, if you flop, you flop. But, thankfully I got really, really lucky. I worked hard. And that's sort of what started the journey. And like, let me not understate that. There was a lot of luck involved in it. But, I was always just a big fan of rugby league. I was a big fan of boxing, a big fan of all sport, really, as I mentioned at the top of the show. So that's kind of what inspired me to do it. And I guess I haven't really looked back.
Yeah. So, Nick, members of sports media, can often, cop a lot of criticism or, what could almost be called hate. And, look, sometimes, as you just mentioned, it is justifiable because sometimes you have media members come in, they're maybe not respectful to fighters, respectful to them as people. And, it oftentimes will come from a place where, fans are just very overprotective of their chosen sport or athletes. But, it's because they love it. But do you think in general in combat sports, there's maybe somewhat of an underappreciation from general fans and, maybe even some of the athletes on, all of the work that does go into being, an active and involved member of combat sports media?
Well, yeah. And I think it kind of relates back to what we were saying before, Alex, in terms of like, where to become a credentialed member of media, it doesn't require as much these days as it might have before. So I think this distrust of the media from fans can come from the fact that, clickbait's a big thing that social media has given rise to. Yeah. But not only that, it's the loss of manners, I think, the loss of I guess, basic respect that has kind of put the media offside, not only in terms of, not only with regard to fans and viewers, as you mentioned, but also like the fighters themselves, the athletes themselves. I was talking with a journalist a little while ago, and he was telling me stories about when he used to cover rugby league back in the early 2000s. And like, you'd go and you'd do a story with a player, and then you go on and have a couple of drinks with them afterwards. And there was kind of this trust and this respect. And there were these friendships and there were these bonds, I guess, forged back in the day. That doesn't happen anymore, right? Where now it's kind of like people hide behind, they don't hide behind things, but it's a lot less personal than it once was. And I think that where relationships where so much, I guess, was put into forming relationships back then, I think because that's sort of fallen away, that there has been this distrust that's been formed. And I think like all it takes is a bit of effort to create that trust, right? And basically just don't be a dickhead, and you'll be well respected and hopefully well liked.
Yeah, definitely. Niko, last couple of questions, man. I don't want to keep you too long. Last one from me anyway, which is, obviously I always like finding the origin story of where people became, like you talked about it there, you've always been a fan of rugby league and boxing and that sort of stuff. Was there an initial moment, an initial fight, something that where you can remember going, man, what's this? And then you became a fan thereafter. I remember mine. I remember watching Brock Lesnar and Shane Carwin and those guys back in the day, and the early days. And that's sort of where my interest began and formed there, and the early days of boxing and that sort of stuff. So for you, when did your interest really start to peak in the sport?
Well, I started following rugby league when I was like, I guess towards the end of my primary school years, or when I was probably about 11 years old when I started following that, and that sort of opened the floodgates in terms of like being able to follow sport. Like, I mean, I'd always watch the Australian Open with my dad, and I'm a big Eels fan, and obviously you can't really grow up Filipino and not be a boxing fan, right?
Yeah,
like certainly not in my era.
So Pacquiao,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. When Manny beat Ricky Hatton, and when he fought Miguel Cotto and stuff like that. And I think also being able to grow up and like as a sports fan in the YouTube era, like, I mean, all this was so like, relating back to what you were saying earlier, Alex, like, having all that stuff so readily available to you, I think was a big thing. So that kind of, to me, opened me up to combat sports. And in terms of like MMA specifically, in school, like my mates and I, we knew of George St. Pierre, and we'd be able to look at his highlights and stuff, and we were like, man, this guy's a beast, right? We would say that he looked like a Tekken character.
Yeah.
Like, no one in particular, but like, maybe if Horang was bald, or if Heihachi was a bit younger or something like that, he kind of looked like that.
Yeah.
So we had this great admiration for him, but I think it's certainly when Ronda kind of took the world by storm and took over the sport, that's what really, I guess, cemented me as kind of a diehard, and the sport since then has gone from strength to strength, and a certain loud-spoken Irishman came after that, and then the wave of Aussie talent came through shortly after with Rob Whittaker, Alex Volkanovski eventually, and then we saw during the pandemic the ability of the UFC to be able to carry on during COVID, and I guess that brought with it a new wave of fans. So the UFC is stronger than it's ever been, but I'd say that's where I sort of began with GSP, Manny in the boxing, and eventually Ronda.
Yeah. Well, look, man,
what about you, Alex? Do you have was there a moment for you?
Yep. Chuck Tito too.
Yes.
Chuck Tito too. So my old man, because he's thought it'd be a great idea when I was real young to throw on a couple of fight shows, regular watching for a young boy. But
there you go.
Yeah, Chuck Tito too. And then just ever since then, man, just I couldn't get enough of it. Like I didn't know as much as I did coming up, but yeah.
Yeah. There was almost like, I feel like that era was almost like the Attitude Era equivalent of our sport almost. I don't know.
It was when Strikeforce was still going on and all these other organizations, that was, it was kind of almost like the Monday Night Wars back then, with just promotions just everywhere. Yeah, it was a great time. But look, man, last question from us today. One could look at your career and say, you've achieved so much, to make it to the position that you are through, you say a lot of luck, but it's also, a lot of hard work, obviously. And, you could be right to be, rightfully satisfied, with what you've achieved in your career so far. But my last question is, do you have any remaining goals in your professional career that you are wanting to achieve specifically? And if so, and you can share them with us, what are they?
Oh, Alex. I've been at Fox Sports for coming on 8 years now. So it's been a long time with this company, and I love it to bits. And long may it continue. Hopefully, I did my journalism degree. I finished in 2016, so I wanted to do this for a little while now. But in terms of like actually presenting on TV, on camera and stuff, that only kind of started like around the pandemic or right before the pandemic. So like I'm like extremely new to this. Like I'm very, very green when it comes to being able to report and stuff. Like the people around me and the people that I look up to have been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
You know, for in some cases over 20 years, right? So there's still so much to achieve. There's still so much to do. There's still so much hard work to be done. But you know, I just hope I can enjoy the ride while that happens. And you know, I said at the top of the show, like I'm a fan of all kinds of sport, whether that be football. Like I'm a big Western Sydney Wanderers fan. I'm a big Tottenham fan as well. I love my rugby league. You know, motorsport, Formula One, boxing, UFC, you name it. Like I'll just froth for whatever. So. Yeah, there's so much I'd like to be able to do, and so many roads to walk down, so many avenues, and you know, I guess if I just keep working, then you know those opportunities will present itself. But at the moment, you know, I'm very happy with where I'm at, and I'm very much enjoying doing the show, and long may it continue, I suppose. What about for you guys?
Well, I mean, you know, I'll be the main event on UFC 293. No, I mean, for me anyway, I said my answer would just be, what goals like don't I have? You know, as I'm still, you know, so new to this that I've got so many goals. You know, one for me would definitely be to cover a UFC event one day live. That'd definitely be one goal for me personally. But
yeah, I think that's definitely, I think it's collectively our goal as a sort of team that, you know, Alex and I have been friends for 10 years now. So when we formed this, it was, you know, because we love the sport and we wanted to start covering the sport in a sense, you know what I mean? And I would really love for us to be able to grow this and you know what I mean, turn this into a network of some sort or something, you know what I mean, into our own established outlet that's, you know what I mean, that can really, you know, cover MMA specifically and cover boxing and have a real home for that. So, but I agree with Alex that, you know, we've got our credential in for 293, so we're waiting to hear back, but we would love to.
Yes. Are you guys Sydney based?
I'm on the Gold Coast. I'm actually from Sydney. I'm from North Narrabeen. So I was born in.
There you go.
Yeah, I was born in Mona Vale, but got family everywhere. But yeah, no, I'm from Sydney. But we're up here. But yeah, we definitely love to get credentialed for that event. So that is the goal.
Yeah, that'd be mad. We should link up if you guys do
definitely.
make it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, look, Niko, thank you so much for joining us today, man. We really appreciate you giving us some time. It's been an absolute privilege to interview you, man. You know, wishing you all the best for the rest of your week and, you know, the rest of your, you know, amazing career that you've already worked on so far. We'd love to chat to you again in future. Maybe after we find out what that mysterious UFC 293 main event is.
After that's revealed, who knows?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Niko. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Back to Winnipeg, huh?
That's it. Thank you, man.